Hello friends and welcome to Intense Thought. In today's video I'm going to talk about healing from gluten sensitivity, corn allergy, and SIBO. And the reason I can talk about this is because I've suffered from all three of them and I have turned them back. So this will be a very practical video for those of you who suffer from this, and I'm sure that if you suffer from other things that are similar to this, that you will find value in this video because there are some things here that are not explained. And you can look to modern medicine, but modern medicine does not have an answer to this. So if you go through this path, there is a tremendous amount of confusion, uncertainty, and really severe symptoms that you get. And I've had some really severe symptoms from this. And I was so sick many years ago that I lost my job. I had a career in technology. I was IT director, and I was so sick from this, and it was undiagnosed by my doctors, that I could not work anymore. And so that was 7 years ago. So it has been a long road in recovering from that. But I will share with you what I think can really help you. And this is the result of practical and open-minded analysis where you just look for things and you try to find what works. Obviously, my situation may be very different from yours, so this does not necessarily mean that you could have my results if you do this, but I'm just going to hopefully broaden your awareness and give you some ideas. So if we come over here to the Mayo Clinic, we see that celiac disease is caused by gluten. And gluten is in wheat, barley, and rye, and for most people, the only thing you can do to help manage the symptoms is follow a strict gluten-free diet. Now, this causes all kinds of terrible things, and celiac disease and gluten sensitivity are very different. One heals and one does not. Mine seems to heal. I do not seem to have the actual celiac non-healing. I have the gluten sensitivity. I'm also allergic to corn, and lots of people who have allergy to gluten are not necessarily allergic to corn, but some are. And corn is interesting because we can look here for celiac disease on the Mayo Clinic. We can look here for SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which if you've had the bloating and the pain from SIBO and the inability to get it to go away, then this is the video for you. And you know what I'm talking about. But this one, corn allergy, well, we can't talk about it because it doesn't exist. And even though it exists, at least for me, it doesn't exist. So you can't get any support really for the corn allergy because no one seems to believe that corn is something you can be allergic to, even though you can be allergic to everything else, just not corn. Okay. And that's the limitations of established medicine right here, that a person can have this, but it doesn't exist. It's not a recognized disease. So it is important, therefore, to keep an open mind about solutions because the way the conventional medicine works, things have to be vetted and they move very slowly. And I'm not even faulting them for not having this. It's just that medicine has to eliminate all kinds of things that can complicate things, or that could lead to false diagnosis and doing more harm. And so in that process, they're slow to find what the actual problems are. So there are many supposed examples of ways to heal from celiac disease or SIBO or whatever else. But unfortunately, gluten intolerance, but unfortunately, they just don't work. Most of them don't work. And I go down this list here, low FODMAP diet because you have SIBO. And if you've been on the low FODMAP diet, you know that it helps, but it doesn't fix anything. And if you've taken probiotics, you know your SIBO just gets worse. And it doesn't really matter what the probiotics are, they generally don't work. And of course, you should just exercise more. Well, if I'm bleeding because I'm eating bad stuff and I'm completely bloated, yeah, exercise is great. And of course, you should manage stress, but the stress is from actually having the problem in the first place. And of course, take additional supplements, but it doesn't really matter what the supplements come from. And then take this, glutamine. Well, this could cause cancer. So there's a lot of stuff out here from very reliable sources that in my experience just doesn't work. And there's nothing to be said bad about this. I'm sure that these people help lots of others, but it just doesn't work. At least it didn't work for me, and it doesn't seem to work for people who continue to suffer with it and claim that they're not getting better. So let's go back to this, and I'll share with you what I do think does work. So all the symptoms that you get, bloating, abdominal pain, etc., fear that you're going to have your intestines cut out, and that is a realistic opportunity because I do know someone who had their intestines cut out from the celiac disease, and they died. And they died from celiac disease because they kept having, I don't know whether it was celiac or gluten sensitivity. It was not explained to me at that moment, but they died from it because they just kept getting worse and worse and worse. They couldn't get any answers, and so they kept losing more and more of their intestine, and they died. And then I had all of that plus all this other joyful stuff, vision degradation, mouth sores, bleeding, all the rest of the normal stuff that you get from that, all bad. So what do you do? Well, first thing you discover in all of this is that you should remove wheat. And then when you remove wheat, you could start to become allergic to corn. Well, because the thing is, you might be allergic to corn, since there is something in corn that can mimic gluten sensitivity. And if you are allergic to that, then because you shifted from wheat, you probably will go to corn. And here's another problem with going from wheat to corn. Wheat is fortified, so you get all kinds of B vitamins in wheat, but you don't get it when you go to corn, or if you go to rice or something else as your grain, if you go to another grain. So they're not fortified. So, but wheat, at least in the Western world where I live, is, and if you're getting most of your B vitamins from wheat, then you have a big problem when you switch to corn or to other things, because you get even sicker from the lack of vitamins. And then, of course, if you go long enough, you may discover that all of your vitamins could have wheat or corn in them. In my case, because I am allergic to corn, I'm doing this from the perspective of corn. And it's not too hard to look here. So, I mean, here's a very common multivitamin for men, and I used to be taking this, and I would get such pain when I would take this, even though I took this for a while when I was younger, and then as I progressed worse and worse and worse. I'm not saying it was from this, I'm saying that this made me get so sick I felt I was going to die. And what's in it? Well, cornstarch. And what are all these vitamins made from? Well, they're all synthetic vitamins. They're all made from corn. And so you can be allergic to mold, and you can be allergic to other things. Let's take a look here at the concept. This is something that is added to all products, including cleaners, is citric acid. Citric acid, I went to a health food store that was designed for celiacs, and I said to them, I get really sick when I have citric acid, or I get really sick from wheat. And the first thing that I got was this. This is dermatitis herpetiformis, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It doesn't really matter. I can tell you it burns like your skin is on fire. It hurts so bad. And this lovely stuff is a function of, as the body gets going, when you touch water, it gets worse. Literally, water makes this worse. So, I noticed at a young age, because I've had this for 20 years, more than 20 years, maybe 25 years that I've known, I noticed at a young age that it came from vinegar, but I didn't understand why, and I also knew that it came from ketchup. So the first things that I got allergic to were ketchup and vinegar. And much, much later on, what I discovered is that this, and this is something I would try to get rid of in my rental property business earlier on, which I also needed to stop doing because I got too sick to do the cleaning. This right here is referred to as black mold. Okay? So, in order to make this citric acid in an industrial production, I went to a health food store and they said, oh, well, you can't be allergic to citric acid. It's just lemons and limes. It's not. It's actually industrial black mold fed, and it could be these other things, fed sugar. In this case, it could be corn sugar. So you just take black mold and you feed it corn syrup and you get citric acid, and it causes you to get cavities, which I had only at one time. Only one time in my life did I ever have any cavities. And it was the time when I was switching with the celiac to different foods. And I was eating more corn and getting much, much sicker, and I started having cavities, which I'd never had in my entire life. And of course this, because this is one of the worst feelings that I have had. And I've had feelings of glass going through me, but this was just terrible. And of course I had all these other symptoms. Brain fog was so bad that I thought I couldn't stand up. I was dizzy, I was falling over, and all this other wonderful stuff. So here is our example of that mold. And you can see that this is referred to as black mold. So this is kind of what you get on your shower. So you just take this, feed it corn syrup, get citric acid, and then not only do you eat the citric acid in everything, because it's cheap. This is cheap. It can also be organic because, well, this is an organism, so just feed this organic. So it could be an organic food. That's my experience. And maybe I'm tripping over some small detail. But my experience is that there is this citric acid in this industrially produced citric acid, even in organic food. As an aside, you should know that if you suffer from this. And this kills off all kinds of things in the body, upsetting your microbiome. And that's what it did for me. So I had this problem with the citric acid. Now, making this worse, this is in all of the cleaners. And after COVID, everyone thought that you should wipe every surface everywhere down with the most toxic cleaner possible. So take your black mold citric acid, wipe down everything, and never use soap and water. Because soap and water, you might not get so sick. But this you get so sick as it kills your gut microbiome. And is it any wonder that these autoimmune and allergy symptoms are expanding worldwide as we kill off our own gut microbiomes? So coming back to this, the first thing that you do is get rid of wheat, and then in my case I had to get rid of corn, and then I found that all vitamins contained all of this stuff, and medication. I had problems with, I had high blood pressure problems, that I was taking high blood pressure medication, which was packed with corn. And so because of that, getting rid of the corn blood pressure medication caused the blood pressure to stabilize and come down. And then you may also get allergic to dairy. And then I realized that I was allergic to chicken and pork and lamb, which was not grass-fed, because they had been eating corn, and I was so sensitive to it that it made me sick. I was also getting allergic to exhaust fumes because, of course, corn and ethanol. And then there's modified foods, pesticides, and everything. So if you realize that if you're putting modified foods or foods that are grown with pesticides in you, it's killing your stomach bacteria. So you try to get rid of all of that. But if you get rid of all this stuff, like it says here, you still don't get better. You only get worse. So you can get rid of all this stuff, and you only get worse and worse and worse. And in my experience, it was 2 weeks recovery from wheat and corn. Here's a couple pitfalls before we go into the fixing of all of this. There is a concept, water memory. Well, it is said that if you eat distilled vinegar, that you will not get sick. My experience with that is that if it is distilled vinegar made from wheat or corn, that is absolutely not true. Because I got so sick from distilled vinegar constantly, that's where I got the hand allergies, etc. And it was always distilled vinegar. Now, distilled vinegar, the distillation is supposed to remove all of the gluten-free processes. But I'm going to give you a concept here that is not necessarily medically proven, but it's just something to keep in mind if you are suffering and looking for a solution. When I get this, or when I used to get this, and thankfully it was not quite as bad, but I can tell you that one little blister burns so much that it just hurts terribly. I used to get it on the sides of the hands. But when I would get that, it led me into a variety of research, and I found this, which I thought was just total quackery. This seemed like the dumbest thing in the entire world, because if you are not familiar with this, the concept is that they will take a substance, like let's say that you are thought to be deficient in calcium. So they'll put calcium in water and keep diluting it until not a single molecule of calcium remains in the water, and then they sell it to you and give you this water that once upon a time had calcium in it and no longer does. This seemed, when I read this, I thought this was the dumbest thing in the entire world. I mean, beyond the dumbest thing. That you would pay, like you need calcium, so you would pay someone to give you something that does not have calcium in it. That may be the dumbest thought in the world. But as I researched more, and I never had any benefits from homeopathy whatsoever, I will say that this did not do anything for me. I'm not criticizing this, and if this works for you, that is great. But I never, ever got any benefits from this whatsoever. However, the concept is that energy stays within the water after something has been exposed to water. So if water is exposed to calcium, there is like an energy signature that stays in the water. So if you distill something, if you have distilled something that was made from wheat and is now no longer containing wheat gluten, if there is some residual energy signature, and there's a concept called water memory, and water memory is the thought that water remembers things. That it has the experience that the homeopaths found many years ago that is not accepted by current science. And that doesn't mean that it won't be someday. It just means at the moment it's not. So it is not official conventional medicine, at least where I live in the United States. But it is worth noting that whether this is true or not, this is the representation of water being affected by thoughts and feelings and words and phrases and music, and that water changes its shape and has a different signature of energy based upon what it's exposed to. So whether it's true or not, I have no idea. But what I do know is that distilled vinegar causes this for me. And if I eat that, then I have that problem. I don't get it immediately anymore because now I'm getting so much better. But I just want to point that out. If you were to watch my esoteric principles video, you would see that there is a concept in that video that talks about the waters of life or the philosopher's stone. And the basic principle, and I explain it much more there, and I'm not going to go into it in here, but I'm just going to mention it, that the concept of the philosopher's stone, or healing in general, to the ancient alchemists, was that, and also if you come from a religious background, like Christianity, for example, Christianity says that you are not supposed to eat the blood because within the blood is the life. It doesn't say the blood is life, because you can have blood but no life, but it says within blood is life. And to the ancient alchemists, there was an energy that was contained ultimately in a water, and that water was the philosopher's stone, or the waters of life in Christianity. So that concept is that life is in water. That's important to note. And we'll come to that here when I talk about the getting better. But just be aware that even though this is listed as safe, you might want to be aware that something that has been purged of gluten elements or purged of black mold or whatever else could hurt. And I already said this here, everything's wiped down with citric acid, so that's bad. One thing that people don't seem to realize is that if you are ingesting a lot of things that are antibacterial, like chewing peppermint gum a lot, or brushing with a really strong, like a neem toothpaste or something that kills your stomach bacteria, at least for me, that hurt a lot. And so avoiding that seems to help. Now, water, I started to become allergic to water and could drink nothing but spring water. I'm getting better with that. Now I can drink other water, and I could drink, a glass of just normal water. But I would have to drink spring water because if I drank filtered water, the filter is carbon. But what do they make the carbon from? Well, they usually burn corn to make a carbon filter. And you could have them burn, say, coconut, but it's much harder to find. So generally, when water is filtered, at least in the United States, it's corn. And then, as I said, meat fed with corn or wheat, that is a problem for me. And I avoided risky things because I was concerned about things like taking glutamine or any other amino acids, because the concept is these amino acids, the body, I'm not so sure that you should be pumping the body full of amino acids. And there is a connection, at least I believe with glutamine, that is one of the fuels that feeds cancer. So because celiac and gluten sensitivity and these allergies and SIBO increase your risk of cancer, I don't want to also add amino acids that further increase my risk of cancer. So I did not do that. So let's talk about the actual healing. Healing is done by adding living foods. And I'm going to show you the foods that I eat that I believe turned it around. There's only really one that's turned everything around, so we will skip this one first. The first one is, I believe, the most important one, but we will come back to that because I did not go in this direction. I went backwards first. I started eating organic everything, wild-caught fish, grass-fed, and finished meats. So I could not eat chicken, I could not eat pork, because chicken and pork are unable just to eat grass. The animal has to eat something besides grass. You can't feed a pig just grass. You can't feed a chicken just grass. It needs other things. So generally, although it doesn't have to be fed corn, in my experience, it is fed corn. And so because it's fed corn, I mean, it could be fed millet. You could feed a chicken millet. But generally in the United States, it's going to be fed corn. It's not going to be fed millet. So that becomes more of a problem. I also switched to whole food vitamins, and I only found one brand that got almost all whole food and no corn, and very little synthetic vitamins, but I couldn't find all synthetic vitamins, all non-synthetic vitamins. So I did the best I could, but I found one brand, which I will share with you here. Not that I'm promoting anything, but I'm going to share the things that I use at the end of the video. And the main thing was juice, because juice is life. And I explained that principle, as I said, in the esoteric video, which you're certainly welcome to go back and watch. It's in the Deep Thoughts, Deep Study playlist. But in that video, the esoteric video, I'm explaining that the concept that ancient medicine had was that your body needs life. So if you have SIBO, which I had terribly, and you just kill everything off with antibiotics, and then you add probiotics to it, and then you try to improve your gut motility, let's say by adding something that should improve it, like ginger. Let's say you start taking ginger. Well, your gut motility won't necessarily improve if your system is deficient in nutrients. So you need to add nutrients to the body. Likewise, if you have gluten sensitivity, the body's not getting nutrients. And in the case of corn allergy, same thing. I'm sensitive to this because my body is not getting nutrients, because my body with the gluten sensitivity is attacking itself. The whole body is wound up, and I've got SIBO. So you put all these things together, the body's attacking itself. It's got bad stuff going on in the intestines, and so you have to reset that. And so what you need to add to the body is not processed foods and cooked meats and all the rest. You really need to add living food. And if you have SIBO, you think, but I can't eat a lot of live vegetables, or I have problems with, if I eat sugar, things go crazy. And I understand that concept, and I had the same exact problem. The SIBO that I had, it would seem the wrong thought to say, okay, well, I'm going to take carrot juice because carrot is sugar and sugar feeds SIBO and all the rest. But that's exactly what I did, and that's how I healed. So, and I'm sure celery juice works for someone, but celery juice doesn't work so good for me. Celery juice does not work for me. I don't know why. There's something about me that I don't need too much celery juice. And if I do, I don't feel well. I have electrolyte issues from too much celery juice. But that's just me. What I'm trying to get into your mind, though, is that the body heals by adding life to it. And this is not conventional medicine. This is not established anywhere. I just want to put this in your mind. If you want to heal, you add things that are alive. You add living food that has life and energy in it. And that is what, in my case, sealed the stomach. That is what caused these allergies to go down. That is what caused me to be able to go out to a restaurant and they say, oh, well, we cooked this in the fryer and the fryer is cross-contaminated. And I say, that's okay. But before, I was so sick that just passing the smell of gluten somewhere made me sick. Or smelling ethanol in exhaust fumes made me sick. And SIBO was just rampant, and there was nothing that seemed to fix that. So I will progress here and share some things with you about what I actually used. So the first thing that I used was, I forgot to mention this earlier, with so much SIBO, I could not sleep more than 90 minutes a night. Literally 90 minutes, and I would wake up and I would look at the clock and I would say, oh, please let it have been more than 90 minutes, and I could not sleep more than 90 minutes, and that was all I could sleep for a night. 90 minutes. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And so I would try to sleep some other times during the day, and I might cobble together 4 hours of sleep, because I'm only able to do it every 6 hours for 90 minutes. So it was a terrible experience. But what I did find that could temporarily reduce the SIBO, and this is not a solution, this was just it just helps it, was that coconut oil would diminish the experience of SIBO and cause me to sleep more. It was not a fix. This did not fix anything whatsoever, but it helped. And it helped, so because I want to share that. I also found that when you have anxiety from this, or you feel keyed up because your body has all of this bacteria going in bad places, like in the upper intestine, the small intestine where it should not be, that this did have a positive effect temporarily to settle it down, and the anxiety that was directed from the bacterial overgrowth would start to subside. And so you'd feel a reduction in anxiety just by using coconut oil. So if you have anxiety like that, I'm not suggesting that you use this as a crutch. I'm not suggesting you use anything. I'm just telling you that if you have that, it's something to consider. And you have to consider what's best for you. I have no idea what your situation is, and we are all different. Everybody's different and has different expressions of what makes them sick and what makes them well. But this is just something to be aware of, that this was a mild antibiotic, antibacterial, and it did not cause any harm. It caused things to be better. So the next thing is I use nutritional yeast. B vitamins are a water-soluble substance. So you lose B vitamins. Now, if you can't eat wheat and corn, or if you're eating, let's say you're eating keto, which I did not get any benefits from eating keto whatsoever. There was no healing there. When I was so sick, I was down to eating the carnivore diet. I was literally eating grass-fed beef, salt, and water. And I did that for about a week, and it was terrible. But that was the rock bottom. And from there, I started to add foods back, like sweet potatoes and some other basic stuff. I could eat dill. There were basic things, but I was getting allergic to spices, because the spices were also functioning as an antimicrobial. So if you have gut issues and you're putting peppermint toothpaste or peppermint chewing gum that's just dripping down into your stomach and killing things, going into you, and that becomes a problem. Too much for me it was. And then if you're also adding, let's say, lots of oregano, or you're adding something with oregano oil or peppermint oil, well, that stuff is upsetting your microbiome, because that stuff is antibacterial. And you don't think of oregano in food as causing that, but for me it was. Oregano, marjoram, those green spices, they are kind of like a medicine. Herbalism is herbalism because it had an effect on the body. So I was not absorbing and keeping B vitamins in the body, and that was causing all kinds of issues. Dizziness, fatigue, brain fog. It was so bad. It was just so incredibly bad. And I started adding nutritional yeast. Now, this is non-fortified. Why is it non-fortified? It has to be non-fortified because everything that is fortified adds a synthetic and, in this case, toxic chemical to it. So I need something that is non-fortified. This one is not organic, and I'm using a different one sometimes, but I still like this one. Even though it's not organic, it has worked really well for me, and it has B vitamins. Now, they don't list all of the vitamins that are in this, but there is more than this. So I was using nutritional yeast to get natural versions of B vitamins, which you need because your body won't hold it since it's water soluble. And if you are very deficient in that, then you need to add it. And by adding this in a food-based form, you're not going to get toxicity because it's water soluble, but also because it's non-fortified, you're not getting the toxic chemicals, and your body is getting an abundance of what it needs. Because remember, if you can't absorb things like I could not, then it's important to say, well, if I can't absorb things, maybe I'm going to have to put in a little bit more for a while. And in my case, a lot more was what was necessary. But this was very helpful. If you switch to rice often has arsenic. And one thing that is reported to help you get rid of arsenic is selenium. And selenium can naturally be found in Brazil nuts. So you understand why I eat one Brazil nut every day. And so it's just, you get a lot of them, and you don't need very many because you really only need one. This is 6 nuts, and it's 1,000% of your selenium. So you don't really need very many of them, but that did help as well. I also was eating seaweed, or sushi nori, specifically for the iodine and the vitamin B12. I know there are questions about, especially this one, is this contaminated? Is this contaminated by, let's say, what happened in Japan? I don't know. I'm just saying that I have used this one a lot, and I was not sick from it. There may be more high quality ones, etc., but I did not experience any problem with this. I did not really have this concept in my mind when I started eating this, so I was eating 1 sheet every day. And I was chewing it well. Obviously, it's very important to chew the food, because the understanding that I have from this, and I have also taken stomach enzymes, but what I would say about stomach enzymes is that the enzymes are not, they're just temporary. They don't help as much. So putting in like amylase and protease and lipase, which are the enzymes you need to break down fat and protein, etc., those things are temporary, but what you need if you're trying to get the nutrients out of vegetables is cellulase. Because my understanding, and I don't know if this is the gospel truth, and I certainly don't know if this is the view of conventional medicine, because I have not been able to research this, even though I have looked some, is that vegetables are broken down in your saliva. So if you don't juice your vegetables with your teeth, they really don't get broken down very well, or at all, in the intestinal system. And I don't know how true that is, but I imagine that if you are absorbing less, that is at least more true for someone who is not absorbing correctly. And of course, if you've got all kinds of SIBO, well, the things living down there, they love to see all this undigestible fiber, and they have a field day from it. So chewing the food is very important. But in this case, I was trying to get B12. You don't get B12 from nutritional yeast, and you don't get iodine. And both of these are very important, because I was also using a pink Himalayan salt, which does not contain iodine, and iodine is important for the body. Likewise, B12 is the thing that helps your body, or that helps your stomach. The small intestines have a tendency to stop absorbing B12 when you have gluten damage. When the body is attacking itself, you stop absorbing B12. And so this is the major deficiency that I have read about, and whether it's true or not from what I read, it's definitely what I experienced, because a lot of the things that I had that were wrong were from a B12 deficiency. And so this helped some, but this was not enough. This was just a natural addition. So my vision was so bad. I had perfect vision, even though I had worked in IT before I was really sick and had to resign. I had perfect vision. I had eye floaters, some, but I had them for 25 years, and they weren't crippling or anything. And so, but my vision itself was perfect. I just had perfect vision, and it just went down so much that I could not even read a giant stop sign if I was standing next to it. So when I got rid of all the other vitamins, I started looking for natural ways to add vitamins, or more natural ways, because this is a synthetic here. This is retinol palmitate, vitamin A. Vitamin A, retinol, and my problem is with my eyes. So I said, this is really unscientific here. There's a retina in the eyes, and this is retinol. So maybe I should take some more of this. And I figured 28% in 1 teaspoon is not beyond the daily allowance. See, vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin E are fat soluble, which means they can build up in the liver. And that's not good. You don't want toxicity from these types of vitamins. The B vitamins and the vitamin C, they are not considered to be fat soluble. They're water soluble. So the body will just excrete what it doesn't need. But in this case, this stuff builds up. So I was concerned about that, and I said, okay, well, maybe if I take this in a fish oil. And at the time, I did not know that retinol palmitate was not actually legitimately organic. I thought, well, everything else looks good, so I'll take it. This started to improve my vision dramatically. My vision was so bad. What I also did for my vision was that I started doing eye exercises, which is real simple. I would roll the eye around and look in a circle around the eye, and then I would put my finger in front of my face. I would look at my finger, I would look at the wall, I would look at my finger, I would look at the wall, I would look at my finger, and I would look at the wall. And why did I do that? Well, the reason I did it is because the eye, in my mind, it felt like the eye was weakening. And I know that when things are out of focus, and I have enough people that I know who wear glasses and corrective things, that it seemed like the eye muscles maybe were weakening from lack of nutrition. And so I had this thought in my mind that if my eye is going bad, it's because of lack of nutrition. And so maybe it's getting out of round and the lens is blurring because it's not in the right shape. And so I started doing eye exercises and taking cod liver oil, and all of a sudden my vision starts coming back. And by all of a sudden, I mean like 3 days, my vision started to improve dramatically within 3 days. I went from not being able to see the stop signs until now I'm reading 6 cars down again. and I had perfect vision. So the vision in my left eye is still not perfect, but it is nearly perfect, and it's probably better than a lot of people's vision. So it's just not as good as I used to be able to see because my vision had been exceptional before this problem. When it got really bad, I added to my vitamin A regimen because I added this vitamin A drops because there was a point when just the fish oil was not enough, and I did not want to take more of it because I was getting vitamin D and vitamin E, and so I was concerned about taking an extra teaspoon of the fish oil, but I did want more than 28% of my vitamin A. And so I tried to get it up to about 60% and not exceed 60% because it's fat soluble. So what I did was I said, okay, well, I will take, let's just say, 5 drops of this on occasion when my vision is bad, and I added this to the fish oil, and so I'm getting 70% of my vitamin A, and I thought for a fat soluble vitamin that is enough, and that also contributed to the vision just coming back, and it was a wonderful thing. I said that all of the vitamins that I was taking were actually making me sicker because I was allergic to corn and I was allergic to wheat, and of course you're getting wheat and corn in various vitamins, and you're getting toxic chemicals, and you're getting mold, and you're getting etc. There's all kind of bad stuff in every vitamin. So I went to Whole Foods, and I stood in the Whole Foods store one evening all night, and I read the backs of every single vitamin that there was. I mean, I just read and read and read, and in the Whole Foods store there were exactly 0 vitamins I could take. And when I say I read every single one, I mean I was so sick and feared that I was dying soon that I stood and read every single vitamin. Every brand of vitamin that I found in the Whole Foods and every brand of vitamin that I found in the GNC, there was not a single vitamin that I found safe to take. So I found this vitamin eventually. And this vitamin actually worked for me because it was corn-free. And the capsules, which could be taken apart, I guess, if you're allergic to them, the capsules, some of the capsules are made from wood. So a capsule made from tree bark, that's a good thing, because if it's cellulose or tree bark, that's a good thing for me, even though it's not necessarily healthy by itself. That was much better than all the other alternatives because I did not get sick from it. And so that did not give me the allergy. So what the capsule is made of is also important. All the different fillers, and you do have some synthetic vitamins in this one, but a lot of it is all whole foods. So I forget exactly which ones are synthetic here, but there's probably a B vitamin here somewhere that is synthetic. So this, for me, was very helpful. This one, I also was taking B12 because in what I found was when I was really sick, the B12, as you can see here, was only 108%. I can't really move the mouse to hover over it, but the B12 was 108%. That was not enough for me. Like, I could not get better taking that low dosage for a long time. So I added this one, which was also the methylcobalamin, not the cyanocobalamin. I was taking the methylcobalamin. And this was, since B12 is water soluble, and I'm not absorbing it anyway because I'm having gluten sensitivity, this helped a lot. This really helped. But I noticed that there were residual problems, like I had eye twitches from vitamin D and other things. So there were things that I had to play around with. So everything about the body's always telling you something. Whether it's, oh, I've got a spot on my nails, or the cuticles are falling down. The cuticles aren't falling down anymore on my hands. When I look at my hands, the cuticles are no longer falling down. And if you look at your hands and the cuticles are falling down, that's a symptom of something. If you have spots on your nails and you haven't just beaten them off the corner of your desk, then, a white spot on the nail says you have, unless you did it trauma and damage, that tells you that you could have a deficiency somewhere, or something is awry in the body. It could be a lot of things, but it's something to note. So I added the B complex, and then this I did not take all the time, but I started taking it some. Now, one of the things to note about this B complex is there are deprecated B vitamins, meaning not every vitamin that used to be considered B vitamins, such as choline, not every B vitamin is considered officially still a B vitamin. But I thought to myself, if these things used to be B vitamins, and now we're all getting sicker and sicker with these stomach issues that our parents and grandparents didn't have, maybe having the B vitamins that they thought were B vitamins would be a good idea. So I was looking for things, and I was taking additional deprecated B vitamins, such as choline. And I think PABA and inositol, those are also deprecated B vitamins. They used to be B vitamins, but they're not considered B vitamins anymore. And I was also taking CoQ10, which is not a B vitamin, but I was also taking some of that. So I was just taking this. This is basically the entirety of it. And let me move on. So in the ever ongoing battle with SIBO, I tried probiotics, and of course they didn't work. And I tried antibiotics, and of course they didn't work. I even tried colloidal silver. And colloidal silver, if you take enough colloidal silver, because it kills... Here's the problem with colloidal silver. Colloidal silver kills everything. So the only thing that survives is in the mucus of the intestines, my experience. And that, from my reading, this is not scientific. This is not certain. This is just one man's experience of what happened. Colloidal silver kills all the bacteria outside of the mucus of the stomach. The mucus of the stomach protects the strongest bad bacteria because it's hiding in the mucus. It's rooted itself down in there. And so you kill all of the easy to kill stuff with colloidal silver, and then the bad stuff gets stronger. So using colloidal silver, even though I think colloidal silver is a good product, it's basically just an antibiotic. So furthermore, then from the colloidal silver, I got strep. Now, SIBO is thought to be strep. And when I got strep, I had these white blotches on the back of my throat. When I got strep, I'm not going to gross you out by this, so I'll show you a cartoon version of it. It's basically just white dots on the backs of the tonsils and swelling and all the rest of that. It was because my SIBO was so bad, I was taking colloidal silver. And I was taking coconut oil at the same time. And that caused me to get this bacterial overgrowth. And I realized at that point that the problem was with bacteria. And I realized I made the link that the SIBO and the strep were the same thing. SIBO and strep, my problem was I was killing off so much good bacteria that it was only the bad antibiotic-resistant bacteria that would survive, and it was making the problem worse. So I was prescribed these harsh medicines by the doctor and all of that, and I did not take them because I said, well, this is only going to make the problem worse. I can tell this is not the solution to take more of these medications. So what I tried to do was I tried to make an antibacterial remedy to get rid of the strep, and I basically did it. It's not that complicated. It was ginger and turmeric in water. I put it in a blender, I chopped it up, put it in a blender, and I drank the water. And I had added a little bit of garlic and honey because those were natural things. The strep went away in one day. Literally, the moment I took it, the strep went away, and then I stopped taking that. But that was just ginger and turmeric. I got the natural roots from Whole Foods. I chopped them up, I put them in water and ground it up in a blender, along with some garlic. And let's just say everything combined was a handful. I took a handful of ginger, garlic, turmeric root, just put it in. I don't know, maybe you could use powdered, I have no idea. But I took the natural living stuff, put about a handful in total of everything in a blender, ground it up, drank the water, the strep went away. Instantaneously, the next day, I was starting to heal. And I did that for a couple of days. And it went away, and the doctor said, well, why didn't you take the medicine? I'm like, because it went away. So, because I had been prescribed medicine. So I was also looking for, this is water kefir. Basically what you do with this is you take a couple of these crystals, you put them in, it tells you how to do it, but you get a couple of these crystals, you put it in water with sugar, you let it grow on the counter for several days, and then you get kind of like if you do it right, it tastes like a ginger ale. It tastes carbonated and sugary if it still has some sugar in it. If you let it go further, it tastes more like a vinegar, like an apple cider vinegar, etc. This is just supposed to give you natural bacteria in the body. This helped a lot, but this was not a solution either. So where is the solution? Because all of these things made things better, but I was still fighting the SIBO battle. I was still fighting the battle with the gluten sensitivity was much better. The corn allergy is an allergy. I'm allergic to it, so I just can't eat it. But I was desensitizing a little bit to both corn and wheat so that I could have cross-contamination. I could put my hands on the table without immediately breaking out in a rash because somebody wiped it down with citric acid. I could walk outside and not fear that I would smell ethanol and get really sick. So all of that stuff that I've just previously mentioned helped. But what turned it around and completely got rid of the SIBO was completely gone, was that I started juicing, and I started drinking juice that had been juiced for me. Now, I had been juicing when I was really sick and I was on the carnivore diet for 1 week. And that did seem to help, but I didn't realize how much the juicing was helping, so I got away from it and started doing all these other things, because juicing is very time-consuming and it's expensive. So, for someone who is not working, etc., that was a real burden. So, I found later on, this is not even $15, at all the supermarkets that I go to, because I don't buy it online, I'm just showing it online, this Lakewood Organic Ginger Turmeric, which is what I drink, about 8 ounces a day, this sealed the stomach. And this is concentrated life. You have organic, and you can do anything you want. I mean, celery juice, whatever is good for you. I'm not you, and I have no idea what your problems are. But what I want to impress upon you, and go back and watch the esoteric video if you're curious why, because in the esoteric video, I talk about the concept of the philosopher's stone. And even though alchemy is not thought to be something relevant to the modern day, the concepts in there are very relevant to someone who is looking for answers to celiac and SIBO, etc., because there is good stuff that modern medicine currently has not yet rediscovered. And so they don't credit the ancients, because they think the ancients are dumb and just all barbarians and savages, just, grinding rocks together. They don't credit the ancients, but they themselves have not discovered things that were known by the ancients that do have value. And so if you're not getting a solution, you can look at conventional medicine and say, they can't fix my SIBO, they can't fix my celiac, and if I got a corn allergy, well, that doesn't even exist, so just basically go out and suffer. So that's what I was stuck doing. But juice. 8 ounces of juice. It also gives some of these, like this one gives 100% of the natural vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is not vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is a component of vitamin C. Vitamin C has lots of other components to it. So you don't want ascorbic acid. That's a good way to get a vitamin C deficiency, is to take all kinds of ascorbic acid. That's a synthetic. It doesn't work. It'll make you sicker. And it was making me sicker. So you need actual vitamin C, and you can get that from juice. So in this case, here's carrot and orange juice with turmeric, $4.69 for 32 ounces. And in my case, when I was really sick, I was drinking 8 ounces. I might drink 4 to 8 ounces because I don't want to drink too much juice all the time. The sugar is not seeming to affect me in any bad way, but, there is some sugar in this, so you can't really get away from that. But what I found was this sealed the stomach. And it was by sealing the stomach and adding life to the stomach. And it wasn't just this. It was, I also juiced on my own for quite a while until I realized I could just buy the juice for almost the same price. And in the case of this Whole Foods stuff, it's cheaper actually to buy this carrot and orange turmeric organic than it is to actually juice it yourself. It's cheaper because you're getting 32 ounces. 32 fluid ounces is 4 pounds of carrots, just so you know. You get about 8 ounces of juice for 1 pound, and that means you get 1 cup of juice for 1 pound of, let's say, carrots. Is about my experience. So if you drink this, it's basically the same price, cheaper, etc. And I was paying, I think, for this one I pay $7. This one's in glass, and I like that it's in glass instead of in plastic. So if it's possible, I do get this one. But I'm telling you about this juice, whatever it is, because by adding life to the body, that's how you heal the body. The SIBO went away from only one thing, which was drinking juice. There is no one out there saying that I know of that's telling you that the answer to SIBO is flooding the body with life. I'm sure there's someone out there on YouTube, and I just don't know who they are. So I'm not trying to detract from whoever that is that I don't know about. But generally, doctors are telling you need to increase your gut motility, or you need to kill it all off, or you need to go on a low FODMAP diet. But what I found was I needed to flood the body with life, living food. A hamburger is dead. Even if it's a grass-fed, grass-finished, organic beef patty, it's dead. The food is dead, which means that in order to digest that hamburger, you need lipase enzymes and you need protease enzymes. And that's to digest protein, and that's to digest fat. So you need these enzymes because the food that you have is dead. Now, I still eat meat. I'm not saying to be vegetarian. But meat is dead. So if you want to build life, you don't add dead food, you add living food. And that's what the vegetables, and in this case, orange juices, that's what these foods are. They are living food. And if you watch the esoteric video, it gives you another concept of why the life is in the blood. Well, a plant's blood is juice. When you are eating vegetables, you juice the vegetables with your teeth. If you don't chew well enough, you don't get the nutrients. So if you chew the vegetables, you're juicing them. The problem is you can't get enough vegetables in you just by chewing them. So it's so much more concentrated and easier to get them from an organic juice. I also want to add, with respect to the time frame, that the SIBO, the time it took me to get rid of SIBO, was actually about a week. Once I started taking the juice, it lessened dramatically in that first week, and then by the second week of just juicing, the SIBO was gone completely. It was just gone. There was nothing left. So I just wanted to share that time frame as far as my experience of healing from it. So I want to say 2 weeks, but I was starting to have results in the first week. It was not the first or second day. There were a couple days, and I was worried, like, I'm going to drink this juice, and I'm going to get even more SIBO. But I was so sick already that I thought, well, this is a good thing to try. But it was about a week that I noticed that it was getting better across the board, and then by 2 weeks, there was nothing left. And I've had no SIBO since then. And it's been many, many months since I discovered that. So I also want to add that once the SIBO was gone completely, it was the absence of SIBO that I noticed I started getting a dramatic improvement in desensitization to wheat and corn. And I started to be able to eat dairy without any concern. I was able to eat cheese, even if it wasn't organic. I was eating A2 milk only if I ever drank milk, and I had to give up milk and dairy and all the rest of everything. And then I had switched to A2 on very rare occasions and would normally just get sick from it anyway. Now all of the dairy issues are gone. There's no issues with dairy in anything that I eat. I'm not saying that I'm trying to eat an abundance of dairy. I'm not. But I have no dairy issues now. The gluten sensitivity has dramatically come back where I can eat things that were close to gluten, but I don't know how far that sensitivity will decline. Hopefully it declines further. Maybe I can eat gluten again someday. And the corn allergy is less. The corn allergy has not gone away, but I can touch citric acid. If I have citric acid in a food or something, I'm still okay. It's not great, but I'm not bleeding from it. The moment I would have corn in any way, shape, or form, I would immediately be bleeding internally. So all of that stuff made a big difference. And like I said, it was it was decades of fighting with this. And it was this whole process of learning everything here. And I did take out all of the different things that I am showing. But the healing occurred down here by putting living food in the body and getting rid of all the really toxic, destructive things from the diet. So putting all of this stuff together, healing is done by adding. It's not done by taking medication and going for this test and that test and that test and that test. What do the tests tell you? The tests tell you that you have a problem and they can't fix it. That's what you can take every test that conventional medicine has, and they tell you that you have a problem, but they don't have a fix for it. But you can manage it by not eating wheat. Well, okay, that's a possibility. But I want to get better from this. And I have had actual healing from this, where I got better from this, and my gluten sensitivity is going down. So this desensitized me by adding living food. Yes, I had to get rid of all these toxic things. No, I cannot eat black mold-fed corn syrup. And I can eat dairy again. I can eat chicken and pork. There's no problems with that. If I have cross-contamination, it's no problem. If I drink water that went through a carbon filter, that's fine. If I have some vinegar, if it is distilled from wheat and corn, I have some problems, but they're much milder. If I can touch citric acid now, I was just chewing gum that was peppermint chewing gum. So all these things that I got rid of, I turned them back. And so I want to share with you that it is possible to turn all of this stuff back. And I did this without the risky stuff. And it was by adding living food. Yes, I think it's a good idea to get rid of the wheat and corn, especially if you're allergic to it. I mean, if you're not allergic to corn, don't get rid of it because it's food. But non-GMO, organic, definitely you're looking for those types of things if you're interested in better health. And everything organic keeps you from destroying your gut microbiome, at least as much as we can. And here in the Western world where things are destroyed due to greed and all of the rest, that's harder and harder and harder. But if you can, you are looking for organic. And I will say to you that there are some foods that are considered to have more pesticides and more likelihood of being toxic than others. And you can look into your favorite, if you have favorite vegetables or vegetables that you think of eating and fruits, you can look into foods that are more toxic and less toxic. That's something else to consider here. But the basic idea is I had the allergy, I kept getting worse and worse and worse and taking things out. And eventually, after years of suffering with this and no answers, I discovered that the healing is done by adding living things to the body, and the juicing was number one. Got rid of the SIBO completely. I have no SIBO issues whatsoever. The SIBO is completely gone. And I feel like if I would have SIBO again, somehow I would know that I caused it and I could get rid of it again. And the gluten sensitivity and the corn allergy, they are going backwards. I'm getting less sensitive to both of them. And that is a wonderful thought. So if you are struggling with this, I certainly hope this helps you. And I wish you the best.